Hey Aubrey, how's everything?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you today?
I am feeling good, solid, excited to be on the podcast because it's my favorite thing. So
I know you love I do
I do.
too. I really do look forward to this all week. So I'm so grateful for all of you out there who listen, who
I know.
download, who follow, so that we can do this thing that we love for you.
Oh, it's just amazing. I love our listeners. We just keep hearing from them. We keep getting, reviews and emails, and we see that you guys are understanding our message, right? Of connection, not perfection, and you're really taking it into your life. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Every time we get an email, I feel like that's one of the common themes. People are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I just love that idea." It's
Yes.
so motivating to get out there and make the effort without stressing so much about being perfect for sure.
It's so good. And that also follows through when it comes to pronunciation, right? We cannot be perfect. We can never achieve necessarily that perfection, right? That perfect accent, whatever that even means.
Absolutely, right? We have both found that as we learn languages, we're going to answer a student question that we got today about pronunciation, specifically the letter R. And I immediately, when I started thinking about this, I have solidarity, right? Because learning French and Spanish, it's difficult, the letter R from language to language. Have you found that as well,
Yeah.
Lindsay?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm about to start learning Arabic because I'm going to be taking a trip to Egypt in May. And so I just
Awesome.
found my teacher over on italki and she showed me the syllabus and I'm really wondering what it's going to be like in Arabic pronouncing.
Right.
I don't know.
I feel
Uh,
like this is one of those things which I doubt the R's will be exactly the same as in English. I just feel like that it's different
oh yeah.
language to language almost
Oh,
always, and it's definitely
completely.
tricky. So we
So
understand if you guys struggle with the letter R, we get it. We
yeah,
have as well.
and I like what you said, I have solidarity. I feel like our listeners who speak French and Spanish will know that, but I wonder about our listeners, sorry, in other languages. What does that mean? I have solidarity. What is
Right?
that?
We have
Uh,
that in common. So I understand. Yes.
yes.
Anytime you have something in common with someone and you have empathy for them, you understand where they're coming from, you can say, I have solidarity with you.
So good. I love it. Okay, then what okay, so we're getting into the R sound, and where did this come from?
Yes, so one of our live group class students, Odelia, was asking, I think she actually asked you about this in a class, right, Lindsay? You want to share what her question was?
Yes, I've kind of forgotten about this now, but yeah, awesome student and listener of our show, Odelia, right? She was asking, how is the pronunciation of the R sound different depending on where in the word it actually falls? And when she asked me about that, I thought, "Oh, yeah, it actually is." I hadn't really thought about that. For example, door, it's falling at the end. Current,
Yep.
it's falling in the middle. And right, it's falling at the very beginning. So, Delia wanted to know, how is it different? And how do I know how to pronounce it differently? Right?
Such a good question, right? And I had to sort of do a deep dive on this because the average native speaker
Yeah.
they're going to have no idea. And you're just going to
Uh-huh.
be saying those words and be like, door,
Yeah.
current, red.
Right, right. The average
Like,
native speaker would not be able to answer this question for you,
it's
right?
subtle,
Mhm.
it's nuanced,
Yeah.
it is subtle. So this comes back, guys, connection, not perfection. You don't stress about it, especially where we want to mention that in English, the pronunciation of this phoneme, that has a lot of variations depending on your dialect and where you live, right? In Boston, in England, it sounds very different than in on the West Coast for me, right? So we can say, okay, this is how we pronounce R, and then someone in England or New Zealand might really disagree.
Yeah, I'm really dying whenever I have extra time, which I'm not sure then when that will be, Aubrey. I'm really dying for us to make a video comparing American accents. And the R would be a great one to pull in. The
Mm.
Michigan. I was recently skiing in Steamboat last weekend, and we were on the gondola with a couple men from Minnesota. Oh my gosh, how different the northern Minnesota accent is, Aubrey, compared to mine and people from Boston and California. It's just incredible. It,
Absolutely. I play volleyball with a couple of people from Green Bay, and their accent is quite heavy, and the R
yes.
and some of the vowels. It is fascinating, even within the same country, how different these dialects sound.
I love it. So that's important to keep in mind. That's why we have to come back to connection, right? Accents will kind of make this different, but there
Mhm.
still are probably some rules that we can come back to in
Definitely.
standard kind of what is standard English, right? What
No,
is
right.
non-accent
In
English? I don't
American
know.
English, for sure, we can talk about this, but it is different depending on the dialect. So first of all, R is different depending on where it's positioned in a word and what sounds are around it, right?
Right.
So we're going to divide this. There are really three differences at the
Okay.
beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And we're going to go through all of them, give you some examples, and talk about how, even though it is subtle, how we do make this sound differently depending on where it is in the word.
Okay, I love how we're breaking up this episode into those 3 buckets, 3 categories, guys. This is one where you're gonna want the app, the iOS or Android app, so that you can read the transcripts while you listen to our pronunciation. So go to allearsenglish.com/app to join that app program. Okay, good.
All right, so first, let's dive into how it sounds at the beginning of words. This is called the strong R,
Okay,
where it's louder, it's harder, there's no sound before it affecting it. So
okay.
it's that where the way we make this, we pull the tongue back. It sort
Mhm,
of curls a little bit in the back of our mouth, and the sides of the tongue push against the upper teeth in the back of
mhm.
your mouth.
Okay,
And then the tip of the tongue, when you make this sound, should not be touching anything, right? And
okay.
here is a tip that if you make the sound for j, like jump, make that sound
J,
j, and
j,
then pull your tongue straight back,
j. Uh-huh.
then you can make that r. So j, pull the tongue back,
J,
and
r.
you're kind of
Okay.
pushing your tongue against the teeth. It's an interesting sound to make. It's
Mm.
fascinating, all the different sort of variations for language learners as well as other dialects. But for American English, especially for the strong R, because this strong R exists in every dialect, the question is, right, if you're from England, for example, how much are you using the strong R? Places where Americans use that strong R, you might be using a soft R. So that's where it
Right.
really changes. This sound exists, but which word do you use it in?
Interesting. Okay, good stuff. So the tongue is kind of floating in this case, right? It's not touching anything, which is an important piece, right? It's just kind of hanging out in there.
Exactly, and that's for any word that starts with R, right? Right,
Right.
reason. You're pulling that tongue back, making that very
R.
strong R sound because there's no sound before it to affect it. Now, do think about linking here. We have connected speech where depending on the word that comes before, that might affect the sound of this word we're saying, right? If we say, he's always right, that's affected
It's
by
always
the
right.
Z
Yeah.
sound at the end of always. So remember with connected speech, that affects your R's. But if you're just saying a word by itself and that first sound is R, it will be a strong R.
Yeah, I mean, we just like we don't learn English out of context, we also don't learn pronunciation of independent words. They always
Right.
come together, right? So you guys can
Exactly.
perfect these on their own, but make sure you don't forget to learn them as linking between words and phrases. That's what you're
Yes.
actually gonna use to connect in the end,
Yes,
right?
connected speech is what makes you sound so native and natural. When you're learning in chunks and mimicking, shadowing other native speakers instead of learning lists of vocabulary words, that's when you'll really start to have that more, closer to a native accent.
100%. Okay. So that is the first bucket then, right, Aubrey, is when that R is strong and it happens at the beginning of a word. What would be the second bucket?
So, second is if R comes in the middle of a word,
Mhm.
then it always depends on the sounds around it, the sound
Okay.
right before and the
Hmm.
sound right after. So, it might be a strong R. Before a vowel, you have a strong R with the lips rounded.
Okay.
After a vowel, it's almost always a soft R. So, this
Um,
is, maybe at the end of a word or before a consonant. It's after a vowel, it will sound different. Here's a couple examples: hair, you can hear that that R is softer. I'm no longer, because it's not the first sound, I'm not pushing more air with my R. Or
ah, okay.
car, it's a
Car.
soft R.
Got it. And that's where when we get into the Boston accent, that's where it ends up completely softening and almost disappearing, the "ka," right?
Exactly.
It just goes
Um,
more in that direction.
exactly, it's no longer even a soft R, it's, like, eliminated entirely almost.
Yeah, we'll have to do another episode about where I'm pretty sure the Boston accent originated from British English, actually, which
Mm,
makes total sense when you think about colonization, the colonies, the original 13 colonies. We'll have to go into that another day.
yes,
Fascinating.
definitely.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to know is there are 5 different R vowels. So
Mhm.
there are 5 different vowels that affect how an R sounds, right?
Yes.
So when you're thinking about how should my R sound, it the vowel before is what matters.
Okay.
And after, because an R before like an L or a T sounds very different from an R before a vowel. So we have to think about what are the sounds around it if you're really wanting to diagnose, right? If you're really wanting to figure out, am I saying this R in the accent or in the way that I want?
Okay, got it. Got it. All right, what else do we need to know here then,
Yeah,
Aubrey?
I think the last tip is just to think about consonant sounds. When an R follows a consonant sound,
Mhm.
there's really squeezed together. This is a
Okay.
mistake a lot of native or a lot of language learners make, is to insert a vowel sound between,
Oh, yeah.
right? So make sure like stir, right? Or
Or tree, right?
tree.
Tree.
Yes, you have to be careful not to say turi and
There's no
add that vowel.
consonant there, right? Is what you're saying,
Exactly.
Aubrey. There's no consonant between the T and the R. It just comes together. Tree,
Yeah,
right?
there's no yeah, you don't wanna add a vowel sound. You
Mhm.
squish the consonants together and don't add that vowel sound, which is tempting to do, especially certain, L1s, right? Depending on what your first language is, you may have more of a tendency to want to do this.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I meant there's no syllable, right, is what I meant there. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
no
yeah, there's no
syllable. Yep,
syllable. Yes,
yep.
love it. Okay, so good. Okay, Aubrey, well, let's move on to number 3, our 3rd category, when we find the R at the end of a word.
Exactly. Now, this is always a soft R. It's the same mouth position for the R at the beginning of the words, but because your lips are less tense and less rounded, it softens, right?
Okay.
It's sort of impossible to even do a strong R at the end of a word. So that's interesting to think about, that your R's at the end of words will always be softer.
Okay, what are some examples? Do we have some examples here?
So, for example, pair, right?
Pair,
Par,
par.
any word that ends with R, it
Mhm.
will sound so strange if I try to say like pear and try to make that R a strong R.
Yeah.
We never do it, often because of connected speech. We're linking it to the next word.
Mhm.
And just at the end of words, the R gets softened.
Right, if I think about saying, for example, "pare down," right? What does "pare down" mean? To is sort of a phrasal
Simplify.
verb to simplify, right? To pare down.
Hmm.
I move into the D quickly. I don't hang
Yes.
out on top of the R. I don't say "pare down." No, "pare down, pare down." I keep moving through the phrase.
Yes, and pay attention to how long you're holding the vowel, the air. You're holding that vowel. 90% of pronunciation with R is the vowel, and like that last 10% is the R. You have to be careful not to cut off the vowel. You have to allow it its full sound. Otherwise, that's where words become unclear.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, Lindsay, the words like bar and bear, the R is what's really changing it in both cases. We're leaving the vowel. The vowel
Mhm.
has to make its full sound. If you cut off bear, it'll just sound like it'll be
Yeah.
hard to tell which one you're saying.
So we need to let the vowel be heard so that we're
Yes,
clear, right?
exactly. Always
Okay.
vital.
So good. Okay, that's so important. I mean, this is good. Let's go into a role play. I mean, first, I just want to, see if our listeners,
Mm.
I wonder if our listeners want to learn more pronunciation. We haven't done a lot of pronunciation on All Ears English podcast. What should they do to let us know if they want pronunciation on All Ears English or even in a course?
Yes, right? That's such a great idea. You can email me, guys, Aubrey at allearsenglish.com. Let us know, did you love this episode? Would you like more details? Our episodes here are quite short, so we
Hmm.
can't go into like those 5 vowel sounds I
Right.
mean, you look up a video about the R, it's going to be maybe an hour and a half. We could do a full lesson, a whole class about pronunciation. So let us know, do you want that? Are you interested in that? Because I
Yeah,
agree, Lindsay, I think we could make a really fun course about that. So
we
send us
could.
an email. Let us
Yeah.
know if you would like that.
Let us know. And how do you spell your email, Aubrey?
So my name is spelled Aubrey, B as in boy, Aubrey at allearsenglish.com.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, we have a role play for our listeners. We know they love role plays. Let's do it.
Yeah, so we'll have lots of R sounds and then we'll sort of share, which is it, what and why. So
Right.
in this role play, we're chatting at the gym, Lindsay.
Chatting at the gym. Okay, cool.
I'll start us out.
Yeah.
Someone said the stair climber isn't working.
Really? Bummer.
That's usually how I get my cardio, but I guess I'll try out something else today.
Well, it was good to see you. My CrossFit class is about to start, so I've got to run.
Oh, right. See you later.
Have you ever done CrossFit?
One time with a friend.
One time.
I think it was like a Thanksgiving morning. I really did love it. I think it's really motivating to get the reps in. You're sort of competing with the other people in the class. It showed our heart rates on a big screen, which I found
Yes.
motivating. I like
That
that it's
is
gamified.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've heard good things about it for sure. Yeah. Okay, so should we go back into this then, Aubrey, and kind of break it down for our listeners? This is where you're going to find all the examples today from the episode.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
of our examples are in this role play. So let's get into it. The first R I used was in that word stair climber. So
Mhm.
it's a soft R because it's preceded and followed by consonants and those sounds squeezed together, right?
Right.
Stair climber. I'm not going to create a
Stair.
vowel in between. And it would be really strange to stop and make that hard R. Stair climber, I would have to pause. So it's a soft R for speed, for ease of speech.
Right, because you have to finish the word. You have to finish
Exactly.
the word and keep moving on to the core message. You can't hang out there over that R. So that's a soft R. And then I said, really bummer. And this is the R in really, guys, is a strong R because it comes at the beginning of really, right, Aubrey? That was one of our rules.
Exactly, right? That first one, it's a strong R when it's right at the beginning, especially when it's the first word of a sentence. So it's not
Hmm.
being affected by any sounds before it.
Yep.
And then you said bummer and you had that R at the end. What type of sound was that, Lindsay?
So that was at the end. So it was more of a soft R, right? And the same mouth position for the R as what we would have at the beginning of the word, if it were the beginning of a word, but the lips are slightly less tense and less rounded, right?
Yes, and that's really how you make it softer. It's interesting to think of like physically,
Bummer.
what is my mouth doing? What is my tongue doing? What are my lips doing in order to make sure you're creating the right type of R?
This is a very high level question from Odelia, right? It's quite
Yes.
subtle, right?
Yes, it's true. And I think unless you stop and think about it, you don't always hear the difference because it is very subtle. Okay, so
Okay.
then I said that's usually how I get my cardio. So of
Cardio.
course in cardio where we have the vowel before the consonant after, we have a softer R there. And then
Hmm.
try again before a vowel.
Okay.
So then we have that soft R. Try.
Try. Okay. So that's a little bit. All right. So is that strong or soft? That
I think I put strong, but it's a soft
It's a little
R.
softer.
Try.
Mhm.
It would be it's just impossible for your mouth to make that strong R before that vowel. Try.
Okay.
Just goes
Okay.
softer.
Okay. And then what about CrossFit? That's why I said, well, it was good to see you. My CrossFit class is about to start, so I've got to run. What about
Oh,
that
so
vowel
these
sound?
are yes, so this because it's that this certain vowel, the ah sound after CrossFit, before
CrossFit.
those vowel sounds, that's when it is a strong R. We're
Okay.
pushing just a little harder R before the vowel when it's in the middle of a word.
Right. Because it's easy to push into a vowel where we're going to open our mouth from a hard R.
Right.
Cross, craw, right? That's easy to do. That's natural yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the word start, my class is about to start. So that we have that first rule, the R with the vowel before it becomes softer. So we have R because there's a
Start.
vowel
Mhm.
before the R, it's a
Yep.
soft R.
Okay, a little bit softer. And then did we do run here? No.
Yes, I've got a run. So that one got the strong
Yep.
R at the beginning of a word. Run.
That one's clear, right? We start off
Mhm.
strong. Nice. And then
Exactly.
you said, "Oh, right. See you later." Okay.
Yep, and with right, again, it's at the beginning of a word, that's a strong R, and then
Mhm.
later a soft R at the end of the word.
Good.
So pretty
Phew.
basic really this as far as understanding, okay, it's really a strong R when it starts a word and when it's before a vowel cuz like you said Lindsay, then you can push it a little harder.
Push it harder. Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. So this is a good question from our listener, from our student Odelia. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have other pronunciation questions. So, guys, send us your questions and let us know if you want to improve your pronunciation. And we can do that. We can create more content. Any final thing to keep in mind, Aubrey,
Yes,
for
if
our
you
listeners?
guys I feel like if you really have struggled with the R sound, don't let it discourage you, right? It's difficult for me in French and Spanish. It's difficult for all language learners. So this is something that it is helpful to know to really break it down, all the different sounds, how do I make it? How can I make this sound? But definitely don't let it keep you from having conversations because I think it's just there's solidarity in knowing it's a difficult sound for everyone.
There's solidarity. I love it. Solidarity
Yes,
with an R.
right.
So good. All right, Aubrey, thanks for hanging out. Guys, hit follow on the All Ears English podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Aubrey, how often do we publish episodes on this podcast?
4 times a week, guys. You don't wanna miss any of them. They're super short. You can watch them
Yes.
when you have a few minutes. So, yeah, be sure to follow All Ears English wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, good stuff. I'll talk to you very soon, Aubrey. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Lindsay. Bye.
Bye.